Good morning. Welcome to Friday and to the IQI Academy for Leadership Fundamentals. It's Unit 205 of Voice of the Customer. We're going to do a little bit of an experiment today. And before we get to that, we have a couple things of housekeeping. First of all, here's what we've been doing. We were doing our learning activities. Please keep up with your Teach to Learn conversations. Submit those. The PDSA cycle we are working on, we should be at least through study by now. And of course, update your theory of knowledge mind map. Today we're going to do customer stratification. It's going to look like a lot, but it will be fine. Not to worry. What we have here is an interesting approach, and we have an activity that will help simplify it. As we step through the activity one step at a time, it'll be fairly simple to complete. And of course, we're working on completing our PDSA cycles. But first of all, I want to talk about the use of our file naming convention. We realize that the PDSA file naming convention doesn't support the work we're doing as far as submitting additional versions of our PDSA file, because I ask you to turn in a plan at the beginning of the week and then submit updates, at least one update at the end of the week, or if not before that. So here's the file naming convention I'd like you to follow. First of all, it's got I'm going to switch over here. It has your last name as part of what we're doing, and then every week we have a new PDSA cycle that we're doing. So as you're naming the file, it's a two-digit number. Two-digit numbers with a 0, 1 sort differently, because by the time you get to 10, you want to make sure that there's a 0, so all your files sort in correct numerical order. And the same thing happens with year, month, date. If you put the date first, it doesn't sort correctly when you start to get looking at things that cross over years. Our pre-work was in 2024. We've got, some work in 2025 in our files. So that's one of the reasons we put year, month, date in that sequence. So 2-digit PDSA sequence number and just a 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day. And then here's some examples that we worked out. Danny and I were working out in this. So for instance, Danny turns in a plan at the beginning of the week on the 28th. So she's got the correct date here and the O2 cycle. So that'd be the second PDSA cycle. And then when she turns in her study towards the next day, it's still an O2 cycle. All you do is change the date. The same thing happens if she turns in another submission. Also, same cycle number, new date. And this way you can see this is actually an image straight from my file folder. So things sort and stay together this way. And then when we start a new PDSA cycle, it could be the same date, but now it's a new cycle number, and now it's going to sort differently. Now, sometimes there's other file numbers or other types of files that you're submitting, or you could be submitting, and eventually you will. For instance, Heidi, you turned in images for one of your PDSA cycles. Now, I didn't say anything about naming image files, but that's included in this file naming convention. So when you turn in a file name, you can turn it in this way. So you name the doc, if it's a doc file, that way. If it's a spreadsheet or worksheet where you're collecting data and you've tracked some numbers, just name the file the same thing as you've been naming your PDFs. Or, for instance, images, you turned in several images. So if you have multiple copies of something that goes in, or multiple versions, like I think you had 4 when you submitted things, it would be the same cycle number and date, but then you just number the file with each iteration. This way, everything sorts together. So when we're looking for what's all the work for that particular PDSA cycle, it's all right there. We don't have to scan through the file folders or anything like that. I know this is it seems nitpicky, but it helps when tracking what we're working on and looking back. Sometimes we want to look at, oh, I did that in this particular cycle and I know I collected data for it. I can find it easily rather than have odd names for each of the files and we don't know where they are. Any questions on this? Pretty simple. All right, so today we're going to talk about something that's fun. We're going to talk about customer stratification. And there's nearly 8 billion people on the planet. And there's a good guess that most of them are not your customer. Here, I turn this off. I'm going to switch again. Most of them are not your customer. So then what makes your customers your customer? That's a good question. And how would you distinguish them from the rest of the world's population? Any questions? How would you do that? How do you know your customers are your customers? Besides, they've signed up in your facility. What about people that we've talked about, future customers? How do we know? Well, here's a hint. So we can begin by answering that question with customer stratification. We can say, well, first of all, what is stratification and what does it matter? Why does it matter? So strata is a level or a class of which people are assigned. And to stratify is to arrange or classify. Now, that doesn't mean in an evaluative sense. It's just a means that, in a sense, that helps us better understand or what distinguishes one group from another group. And it helps us better understand perhaps jobs to be done, the needs, why those needs vary. We can better anticipate changes to clients, our residents, customers, even people we work with, their needs, and update how we're working and offering services. So stratification is simply arranging or classifying something or somebody, in this case, our customers, into specific classes or groupings. And these are based upon characteristics that we've chosen. And we're going to practice choosing characteristics in a minute here. Stratifications helps us target products or services to groups or individuals. They can help us improve the quality of what we're delivering because we have a better focus. It helps us to better anticipate customer needs. For instance, the iPad's a great example of understanding and anticipating the voice of the customer needs. Steve Jobs and Apple designed the tablet before the customer base even knew they wanted a fully portable touchscreen computer. iPads came out with zero initial market demand because people didn't realize desire capability of the technology, but now tablets are ubiquitous. In fact, Eric, you're signing on with your iPad, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because my laptop doesn't have a camera.
I got it. So yeah, so there's some features there. I use my iPad quite frequently, and often it's for idea generation and capture, those kind of things. It has an interface that's much better for what I do in some cases than my PC does. So why does it matter? It helps us understand who our customer is. Stratification does. We work to understand who our customer is and who are not customers in a general sense, but customers who are specific to us and our organization. And how might customers define themselves? We might ask. How could strata be important, or what strata would be important to our customers? And to which groups might they belong or see themselves belonging to? And then what are classic and unique ways to divide them? So here's some examples of different strata. You'll recognize some within the people you work with, both residents and fellow coworkers. So what are some common customer identifiers? Well, here's several. As you see these on the screen, do you recognize any of these as classifiers that help distinguish people you either serve as resident customers or as coworker customers in your workflows? What are your thoughts?
I think that there's a little bit of everything here because, we have, for us, we're not, well, we're government and non for profit. And so just our industry is different than for profits, if you look at it on that way. Of course, there are several different skills that everybody brings to the table on the team. We talked about organizational levels and how the organizational charts, usually reflect a hierarchy versus what should be the center, which is the resident. And then I don't know if we really went over age, or gender and stuff, but age for ours is usually our customers is the upper range. We do have a few
Mhm.
younger ones, but not too many. We really didn't get into the language things. It would be, it would be just interesting to see if people have, you know, Spanish speaking or whatever in their buildings, and how are we accommodating them?
Yeah, so even these common ones that we haven't even picked out for our unique situations apply in many circumstances to the people we're dealing with. Those are good examples, Brianne. I appreciate you sharing about that. Any other thoughts as we look at this list of, here's some common identifiers that people use. How does it strike you that they apply or don't apply to your situation?
It seems like we're talking about both the residents and the staff in order to meet, all of the identifiers.
Yeah, so that's actually a split that's not on this list that you could put on the list that we're going to produce is, are they residents, are they staff? Those are different categories that we could include as how do we work differently with these different groups of members. So with so many ways to stratify, how do I choose? So that's one of the critical things that we want to look at is it's critical to understand the different characteristics of who we're working with. As we go through the next exercise, there's no right or wrong answers, but there's some ways that might drive more meaningful data than other ways do. Certainly, we want to consider what your customers are trying to accomplish. When we talked about job to be done earlier, we want to say, what is it they're trying to accomplish in these particular situations? What is their aim or purpose in seeking out your product or service? Knowing about your customer can help you better understand what job they're hiring you for. And then we're going to start with a simple exercise of just listing possible characteristics of your customers. And then we're going to build strata using the intersections or combinations of some of those characteristics. But first, we're going to start with just the characteristics. And we're going to link different strata to your services that you offer in your situation. So I sent you a file or asked you to download it, and it has some empty boxes that look something like this. And what I'd like you to do, and I'm going to have you work with a partner. We're going to do our first breakout session that we've done in this unit. So this might be interesting as we try and set this up. I'll see what Zoom assigns to us. But you're going to do something like this. You're going to fill out these characteristics. Then we'll come back and share with those. So you're going to brainstorm on these things. And in this partner exercise, when we're doing this kind of brainstorming, we're doing it rapidly and quickly. You're generating quantity. You're not worried about quality. The intent is to list now and edit later. And one of you could be a scribe. And so there's no debate, just whatever, and no discussion, just put things on the list and capture all ideas. So all ideas in this certain circumstance are okay. There's not a right or wrong, like we said. So we're going to look at this. I'm going to assign breakout rooms. Let's just do 7 minutes for this conversation and just make as many lists of characteristics. We saw some as examples. You can copy those on your list, but come up with additional ones that seem to make sense for you. All right, here we go. All right, we're back.
Hi, Eric. We sent ours to you in your email.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about it. We'll gather those from each room. How'd that go? First of all, as an experiment for our breakout rooms, we haven't done that before. Did that work out okay?
Really well.
Yeah, it did.
Excellent. Okay, good. All right. Either group, let me know. Let's go back and forth, room to room. So let's start off with Eric, Heidi, and Rayanne. Give me one of your characteristics that you listed.
We were talking about culture and religion. So two of them.
So religion, and you said culture was another one?
Yep.
What do you mean by culture?
So we have different cultures here. For instance, in Cass County, we have a Native American tribe, but we also have a small African American community that has a few churches in Cass County where, for instance, if a family member makes their resident a DNR, they will be shunned by their church community.
Okay. So historical or community culture, right? Is that a good way?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Danny and Megan.
We did we did like one column and one column of like employees or volunteers and the other as a resident.
Yeah, so give me a couple. We'll go back and forth. So what are a couple things that you listed?
For employees, we had job level,
Uh-huh.
education level, work experience.
Okay, that's good. We'll go back to the other room now. We'll take a couple from them. We'll come back to you. All right, Eric, Heidi, Rayanne.
Eric brought up family dynamics.
Now, what do you mean by that?
Some of the families are very agreeable, easy to work with. The other families are not. They're very demanding of things. They're not understanding of, their family members' needs in the facility and progress that they need to make or not. The family had issues with each other in the past. It tends to spill into the building.
Oh, okay. So family, also family cohesiveness might be another one, that aspect of that. I'll shrink that later. All right, back to Megan and Danny.
We put cognitive level,
Okay, uh-huh.
mobility levels,
Good.
temperament.
Temperament. No, temperament. Did I spell that right? I'm not sure.
That's how I spelled it.
There's an A in there. An A between the R and the M.
Here? Like that?
Yeah, it's like temperament. I know it looks
Okay.
weird, but
Yeah,
I only know
thanks.
that because I spelled it that way too. And then,
Spell
my-
check didn't like it, yeah.
yeah, my Grammarly was like, no.
All right. All right, back to Eric, Heidi, and Rayanne. Eric, anything else on you guys' list?
Yeah, we had those as well. We did have like the opportunity for future customers from current families. And then we had something similar where we said various personality types, all income levels was another.
Hang on, so
And then
personality type.
we were gearing more toward you have to accommodate all different type, whether they're, but whether they be introverts, extroverts, how does our activities and, even nursing staff approach different types of people?
So in this category, you might want to have separate characteristics, one that expands or compares introvert, extrovert, there might be another one that's friendly, angry, like whatever those kind of, you might want to split that out depending on what you're trying to do with your characteristics. All right, what else? Let's go back to Megan and Danny. You guys have any more?
Yeah, we have
Age.
age.
Mm-hmm. Oops.
Gender, interests.
Gender, interests, and I'll let the other room do the last one. I know that you all probably have more. I'll just take one more from the first room.
We were talking about various backgrounds, such as or histories, like criminal background versus.
Oh, that's good. Criminal background. I haven't heard that one before, but it totally makes sense. I'm going to save this. I'll send this out if you guys want this, and then I'll also compile what you sent to me and share that. So I'll compile it all in one list. So as you're working on the next part of our exercise, you can see that. Oops. So that's the end of that one. Here we go. So here's an example of customer stratification with HelloFresh. Have you guys ever heard of HelloFresh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're a meal delivery service. You could sign up for a 1 to 2 person or 2 to 3 to 4 person meals. Each week, you get to choose from 3 to 6 menus from their menu selections. They send ingredients packaged and shipped in temperature sensitive boxes. You're provided with recipes and instructions. These are all good things. They assume you have a stove, utensils, and other kind of stuff to work with. And usually only takes about 25 to 45 minutes prep time. So each week, HelloFresh has about 10 to 15 different menu options available. And here's a few ways that, HelloFresh might choose to stratify their customers. Let's look at this. All right. And then I'm going to see if there's other ways. So here's, we have people who are working or busy. Are you family or single individuals? Are you vegan? Do you like or hate to cook? Are you a foodie or are you a picky eater? And then others. So here's some things that show up as, in a total list of categories. So you've created your own list of customer characteristics. In our next exercise that you're going to do, so this is part of your assignment for today, is you're going to pick about 4 characteristics in that list that you want to say, I want to use this to help distinguish one set of customers from another. And so here's an example of from HelloFresh of doing that same thing. And all right, thanks, Eric. I think Eric just took off. He has another meeting. So customer characteristics, and we're creating spectrums now of each of our characteristics. So in this case, we have something like, let's look at their schedule, dietary preference, number of people in the household, and their relationship to cooking. And so when we have this, we have not only the characteristic itself, but let's create a dimension. So in one case for their schedule, they're either retired and relaxed, it's not busy, or it's a very busy schedule. And then with dietary preference, they're either vegan or carnivores. And then they also have the number of people in the household might be only 1, or they might have up to 6. And of course, there's a range here, so you can put a range on your characteristic. And what's their relationship to cooking? They either love it or hate it. So there's these different characteristics, along with some version of a spectrum that we see. Now, we're going to say, let's identify 4 different types of people on this list. So if we say, let's look at this, I might have them all going out here. So person 1, and the file that you have is editable, meaning you can click on the X. You can, first of all, click in the boxes and edit the boxes. There's boxes on each line that you have in your PowerPoint. And then you can click on each X and drag it someplace on your page. So you have 4 X's that allow you to put person 1 on someplace on each characteristic, person 2, and so on, you can place. So then person 1 is also much more, they're not totally a carnivore only, but they prefer that kind of stuff. Person 1 also might have maybe a couple people in their household. They really don't like cooking a lot. And then here's where the other people show up on this list. Now we have a view of what do these people like? What are their different preferences? And we can see, for instance, like person 3 has a very busy work schedule. They prefer meat. There's like 3 or 4 people in their household, and they're on the kind of like cooking side of things. And if we decide we want to take person 3 and have that be the customer we're working towards, then we just highlight that, and then we come up with this. We have an idea that says, okay, our primary customer in this sense is someone with a busy work schedule. They prefer meat over veggies. They have 3 people in their household, and they sort of like cooking. So you're going to select a primary customer from 4 potentials. And you're making this up, obviously, right? So you're thinking of, and you could say in your person 1, 2, 3, 4 that you have in mind, you could have 2 residents and 2 employees if you want. You could have all residents, all employees if you want. And then just make sure the characteristics that you're working with are characteristics that apply that you listed in your grouping. So for instance, Danny and Megan, when you said you've got 2 different lists, if you're working with just employees as that potential customer, then just put your employee characteristics on your list. Picking 4 to begin with, and then saying, how does that do? And then one of the interesting things that happens is you can go back and forth and try a different arrangement and see what other things come up. So here's how the exercise works. You might want to try this with your teach to learn partner. It works out fairly well to do it as a way of teaching this concept and have them help you select that. You've already listed your applicable characteristics. You can select 4. You might select 4 with or without your partner. You can say, help me pick these people. Place 4 characteristics on the customer spectrum. So you fill those out, and then you identify the ranges. What are the highs and lows of each of those characteristics? And then make up 4 persons with varying combination of those characteristics. And then select one that says, for the next work we're going to be doing together, this will be our primary customer that we want to work with or describe. Questions about this exercise?
We're doing this with our in-class partner? Or this
No, I would say your teach to learn partner outside of class. I mean, you do not have to do this with a partner. You could do it solo if you wanted to. I'm just suggesting this is a fun activity if you have someone you want to work with for a few minutes and say, hey, let's work through this concept of customer stratification. And here's a method to stratify our customers in a way that actually applies to what we do and who we work with. Other questions?
When is it due?
This one's due today. So that's why it's worthwhile to combine it with something else you're doing, like your teach to learn conversation. So you can have your teach to learn conversation. What did I learn about doing this work about myself? And then you could turn this in also as here's the output of what we did. And as I said, it's not required to do that with your teach to learn partner. Here's the assignments. We've got the list of characteristics, which you've completed already. And some of you, it sounds like you've emailed it to me already. My assignment is to put that back together and send it back out to you all together in one list. Your teach to learn conversation, and then the spectrums, and then you're working on finalizing your PDSA for the week. And then always make a note around your theory of knowledge mind map. What am I learning? So our concept today is customer stratification. We went through an exercise of how we actually do stratification for our particular customers and the people we work with internally. We can do it pretty much any direction we want to work with when we want to stratify our customer base. And then, of course, we're applying it to our PDSA cycles. Here's our theory of knowledge quotes for mind mapping. This is Edward de Bono. He did the 6 thinking hats. I don't know if you're aware of that one, but he's the source of that concept. And that's a very powerful method of facilitating conversations in groups. Most executives, many scientists, and almost all business school graduates believe that if you analyze data, this will give you new ideas. Unfortunately, this belief is totally wrong. The mind can only see what is prepared to see. Then Annie Duke, who does consulting around decision making, she wrote a book, Thinking in Bets. It's very good. She talks about this concept of resulting. She said, the hazards of resulting. Take a moment to imagine your best decision in the last year. Now take a moment to imagine your worst decision. I'm willing to bet that your best decision preceded a good result, and the worst decision preceded a bad result. That is a safe bet for me because resulting isn't just something we do from afar. Monday morning quarterbacks are an easy target, as are writers and bloggers providing instant analysis to a mass audience. But as I found from my own experiences in poker, resulting is a routine thinking pattern that bedevils all of us. Drawing an overly tight relationship between results and decision quality affects our decisions every day, potentially with far-reaching catastrophic consequences. When I consult with executives, I sometimes start with this exercise. I ask group members to come to our first meeting with a brief description of their best and worst decisions of the previous year. I have yet to come across someone who doesn't identify their best and worst results rather than their best and worst decisions. Well, thank you for today. Thank you for your contributions and your good work. I hope you have fun creating your customer stratification list and your customer characteristic spectrums. I'm looking forward to seeing the results from that. Please stay in touch. Megan, I will see you in about 45 minutes or about an hour from now.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.